Jesus is saying that when we become his followers, we're just like a branch that's attached to the vine. He is the vine, we are the branches. As long as we are attached, we have life, his life flowing through us. We bear fruit because we're attached. That's where it begins. When we're attached to the true vine, it means that we have his life flowing through us. We can never have joy that this passage speaks about until we're attached to him. That's where it starts. Now, if you're a believer and you don't have the joy in your life that you think you ought to be having, maybe it's because you need to be reattached. Maybe you've kind of fallen off and don't even realize it. You know, one of my main concerns about the church is that there's a lot of detached branches. A lot of people who don't have that daily walk with the Lord. You know, I mean, they look like a branch and they kind of sound like a branch, but there's no real life because they've broken the connection. You know, they look alive. They sound like they're alive. But in reality, they're deader than a doornail because they're no longer attached to the vine. And that kind of thing doesn't happen overnight. You know, a lot of people keep going through the motions long after they're dead, long after they've detached themselves from the vine. So if you need to be reattached, here's some really, really basic things that you need to do to make that happen. First of all, you need to read God's Word. I told you these were basic. You need to read God's Word daily. How can you know what God's will is for your life? How can you know what he wants for you if you don't ever read his Word? So, read the Word every day. Second, spend time in prayer, a.k.a. talking to God. That's all it is. It's not reading a prayer out of a book. It's simply talking to God. Seek his will for your life. Number 3, you also need to attend church. Now that's pretty basic, I know. But there's a lot of people out there that think that they can be a strong Christian without ever going to church. I strongly disagree. We need each other, folks. We need to be in each other's fellowship. We need to be together so that we can learn from one another and grow together. So, come to church every time the doors are open, and the joy of the Lord will be our strength. Read an article just this week about 2 men, Bob Stacy and Leroy Lawson. And they shared about some tough experiences that they've had personally. Both men have lost grown children in the last few years. Bob Stacy's daughter died because of a brain tumor. Leroy Lawson's son took his own life. And in the article, they both shared their grief. They never for a moment tried to disguise the brokenness they felt inside or the pain or the grief, but in spite of all that, they talked about evidence of God's presence in those situations and the joy that was still in their hearts. Peter explains that in a wonderful way in the 4th verse of the 4th chapter of 1 Peter. He says in verses 12 and 13, "Dear friends, do not be surprised. Do not be surprised at the painful trial you are suffering, as though some strange thing were happening to you. But rejoice that you participate in the sufferings of Christ, so that you may be overjoyed when his glory is revealed." Right now things may be tough, but the Lord's coming back and he's going to reveal all of his glory. And we will be overjoyed when that happens. Secondly, we need to get rid of, we need to give ourselves in service for others. One of the biggest problems in our world today is that we have become so self-centered so self-centered that we no longer experience the joy of serving others. Do you want to know why the author of Hebrews said that Jesus found joy in the cross? He endured the cross, then scorned its shame because of the joy that was set before him. Do you want to know why the cross was an object of joy for Jesus? Here's why. Because he didn't do it for himself. He had no thought of himself whatsoever. You were on his mind. I was on his mind when he considered the prospect of going to the cross. He did it for us. And there's joy even in a cross if you're doing it for someone else. So this week, call up somebody who's lonely. Send them a card. Send them an email. Go to a nursing home. Visit someone. Go mow somebody's grass that can't do it for themselves. Give some money away. Become less focused on you and more focused on others. And you'll find joy. You know, Jesus said, if you seek to save your life, you'll lose it. But if you give it away, then you'll find it. Thirdly, focus on the eternal and not on the temporal. The reason Jesus could endure the cross was because he knew there was a resurrection coming. As we go through the experiences of life, we need to see that one day there's going to be a glorious resurrection, and we're going to be with Jesus too, with resurrected bodies. Paul writes in 2 Corinthians 4, therefore we do not lose heart, though outwardly we waste away. Inwardly we are being renewed day by day. Our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. Let me stop right there. He says our light and momentary troubles. Could you say that sitting in shackles in a prison cell? Our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. For what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. All you have to do is look in the mirror to see that you're wasting away. None of us are as young as we used to be. You see yourself wasting away. Look at your material possessions and you'll see that they're wearing out. The whole world is winding down. Everything is wasting away. But inwardly, that's where it counts. Inwardly, we're being renewed every single day. So we look to the things that we can't see, not the things we can see. Because the things that we can't see are going to last forever. You know, my greatest joy as a father and a grandfather is to see my family, my children, my grandchildren laughing together, enjoying each other's company. My greatest concern as a father and a grandfather is when my children aren't getting along, when they're bickering, when they're fighting. And if that's true with me, then it's got to be true with Papa God. His greatest joy is when he sees his children love each other and rejoice together and laugh together and enjoy each other's company. And his greatest sadness is when we don't. And the joy is gone. The fruit of the Spirit is love expressed in joy. It's the evidence of God's presence in your life. In closing, listen to Hebrews 12:2 from today's English version.